to stand up and clap for the previous panels, please. Panel of women, panel of the scholars, Dr. Kazem, and the youth panel. They did a great job. And standing up will flow your blood through your body as well.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Are you?
And thank you for being here today. My name is Saeed Sajadi. Today's panel, Prospects for Change in Iran, the Plan for Transition, will discuss the realistic pathway to democratic change in Iran, as well as the future outlook after the fall of the mullah's regime. We're joined here by 4 distinguished panelists who bring thoughtful and diverse perspectives to this conversation. Our first panelist is Dr. Firuz Daneshgari, a brilliant surgeon scientist. He's held professor and chairman positions at Upstate Medical University in Sunny and Case Western Reserve University, and he is the founding director of a fellowship program at Cleveland Clinic. And the next, Farideh Siddiqui, a software engineer. She earned her master's degree in computer science from California State University, specializing in software systems. At Cisco Systems, Farideh worked on performance and reliability testing for telephony. And the next is Reza Nemovi, a design engineer. He's had foundational role in significant research projects at California Institute of Technology, Caltech, Aerospace Division. He combines mechanical design, actuation, and control with a mission to push boundaries of robotics that can fly, drive, and morph. Dr. Behzad Raoufi, a NASA scientist. Since joining NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory 2 decades ago, Dr. Raoufi has worked on many deep space missions, including Mars exploration, rovers Spirit and Opportunity. He currently works on lunar human landing system in the NASA's Moon to Mars program at Marshall Space Flight Center. And a bit about myself. I majored in chemistry, biology, then attended medical school, did training in internal medicine residence programs for the past 2 decades. I have a private practice in aesthetics. Currently, I conduct a research at Harvard University in international field on the subject of secessionism and autonomy. Thank you. Now, please let me start our discussion with a brief opening remarks on the topic. On the June 20th, 1981, Khomeini ordered the IRGC to open fire on a peaceful rally of 500,000 supporters of the democratic opposition MEK in Tehran. That day, the mullah's regime lost the very last vestiges of the political legitimacy it had. The next day, the struggle to overthrow the regime began. At the time, MEK and a month later, NCRI were alone in that fight. It took decades for many inside Iran and around the globe to realize that the only path forward to bring a free Iran, peace to the region, and a world devoid of terrorism fostered by Islamic fundamentalism is through a regime change in Iran. Years passed. The uprisings of 1997 put an end to the claim that a reform is possible from within the regime. After all the factions of the regime, the hardliners and the so-called reformists, all have pursued the same policies of repression at home and terrorism abroad. Reform is not possible under a regime that its constitution claims that the supreme religious leader, now being Khamenei, is the representative of God on earth. Today, the regime in Iran is engulfed in the terminal crises, and there is no solution in sight. The mullah's regime is stuck in a dead end, unable to move forward, and too fragile to retreat. Now, everyone can see that the fall of this regime is inevitable. However, for some, the path forward is not clear. They wonder what strategy can strike the last lethal blow to this regime. And others are concerned about the future of Iran, the transition period. In this panel, first we'll discuss the strategy to topple this regime, and then we'll address the concerns about the transition period. Let's begin. My first question is for Farideh. Farideh, is the prospect of regime change real and within reach?
Thank you for that question. Do I have my voice?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. So, yes, I do think that the prospect of change is real and within reach in Iran. Let's look at the situation of the regime, people confronting the regime, and what I think is the real solution to bring change to Iran. For more than 4 decades of repression, corruption, and a collapsing economy, inflation continues to rise. 80% of the Iranian people live below the poverty line. Families are struggling simply to live. The regime has no solution for its deepening economical and political crisis. Internally, Khamenei is losing his hegemony. The factions are growing inside the regime. In the region, the regime's proxies have been shattered, and the regime internationally is now isolated. On the other side, people are reaching a breaking point. Since 2017, we've had several major nationwide uprisings, each one stronger than the one before, especially in 2019 and 2022. Through their slogans, people have rejected all factions of the regime, including the so-called reformists. Today, women and youth are leading the movement for change. Just within the last year, there has been more than 3,000 protests by 16 sectors of the society, which means that the society as a whole is ready for real change. But of course, just social unrest and the uprising will not be able to bring the regime down. We need leadership and organization, but that leadership and organization exist. Mariam Rajavi, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, the NCRI, and the MEK organization. Since 2017, the MEK resistance units have expanded rapidly. Only within the last year, they performed 3,000 operations against the IRGC and the Basij, and more than 40,000 symbolic acts in 135 cities of Iran. So yes, the resistance units are spreading all over Iran. So as you can see, we have, a regime that has been extremely weakened. Iranian people are reaching a breaking point. And yes, the leadership and organization exist. That's why I think, yes, the regime change is real and within reach. And of course, by the sacrifice and courage of the Iranian people and their organized resistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Faride. And next question goes to Reza. In your view, what is the vision of generations that grew under this current regime? What do they want? What's their position toward any dictatorships today or tomorrow?
Well, when I think about Iran's youth and the challenges they're facing today, I can't help but reflect my own journey. Not because of its struggles are identical, but because the mindset needed to overcome is the same. My life was shaped by pushing through unimaginable odds. And the experience is exactly what I believe the youth of Iran, that they will succeed because of that. Let me tell you a story. Since childhood, I dreamed of flying and exploring space. I grew up taking anything apart, anything that was mechanical. In my 20s, I was building cars, boats, helicopters, motorcycles, and flying was an obsession for me. Flight training was very expensive at the time, so I turned to skydiving. And about 500 jumps in 1 year, I had a major skydiving accident. When I woke up from a coma, doctors told me that I would never walk again, and that the nursing home was the best place for me for the sake of my family. But my dear mother repeated a phrase I've heard from Mr. Rejavi, Mi tavan va bayad. It translates to you can and you must. I refused to give up. And after a year of going in and out of hospitals and another 4 years in a wheelchair, I learned to walk. So I went back to school because I don't want to give the second chance I was given. Studying aerospace was very challenging, brutal. And the professors told me that I should lower my expectations. I didn't. So today, I'm one of the lead engineers at Caltech, designing AI. We're building AI-based robotics and drones. We tackle the hardest challenges, such as putting a man on the moon and putting pickup-sized trucks, rovers, and helicopters on the surface of Mars. I see the Iran's youth the same way I see my own struggle. This path is tough, very tough, but it's not impossible. They have endured unimaginable hardship, risking their lives just for the chance to fulfill their dreams. And yet, like me, they hold to that same belief. Mi tavan va bayad. You can and you must. Iran's youth does not seek luxury. They seek liberty. They want to live by merit, not dictatorship. They've seen hypocrisy their whole lives, and they have rejected it. They want a nation that rewards creativity, equality, and free thought. They will succeed because they have found the formula. Through their unity, they've broken barriers of ethnicity, gender, and class. Organized resistance networks have given them courage and strategy. And what can I say about their conviction? Except they know freedom has a high price and they're willing to pay for it. Like in science, when all the right conditions exist, the outcome is inevitable. Iran's youth already have those conditions: intelligence, perseverance, and purpose. I am certain of their success because I have lived that certainty. Just as I rebuild my life through discipline and belief, Iran's youth will rebuild the country. They already carry the mindset of freedom. The regime is only a wall waiting to fall. Now it's about structuring the final step and ending the regime and opening the door to a free, creative, and forward-looking Iran. Thank you.
Thank you, Reza. And next question goes to Behzad. Behzad, in your view, what's the most realistic path to bring an end to this regime?
Thank you for that important question. I'm also looking at this clock and thinking, how much time do I have to answer that? As an engineer and as a scientist, whenever I look at a system, whether it's to build it or to evaluate it, you have to break it down into its pieces and then put it back together and think about what is the process? How am I going to get to where I want to go with this? So I think all the previous panels gave a lot of statistics and examples of what's been tried in Iran. For 47 years, from the very beginning when this regime came to power, from day one, they started oppressing anyone who thought differently from them. So I want to give the final answer first. We call it bluff, bottom line up front. The only way, the only realistic strategy to bring this regime down is by fighting it and overthrowing it. When you look at political systems in the world, for instance, a democracy, you don't like the current government, you vote them out peacefully. No one gets shot, no one gets killed. The regime started from day one with this paramilitary forces attacking people, attacking political activists, beating them up, stabbing them. I believe the statistic says up until June 20th of 1981, 2.5 years into the so-called revolution, already over 60 activists or members of MEK had been killed by the regime. This is before anybody tried to do anything other than holding peaceful demonstrations, educating the public about what their rights are. So finally, after 2.5 years of this brutal oppression, Mujahideen, the MEK or PMOI, called for a massive demonstration in Tehran. Within hours, it reached over 500,000 people. That freaked out Khomeini. Khomeini and the regime looked at this and thought, if this continues, we're going to be gone within, I don't know how long, very soon. So he ordered the IRGC to open fire on a peaceful demonstration. Hundreds were injured and killed on that day. Thousands were arrested, most of whom who decided not to bow to the regime were later tortured to death and executed. This was a turning point. The regime said, I'm not tolerating any dissidents, any other ideas besides you're going to follow me, you're going to do as I say. And of course, as we've all heard in the last 3 hours, the Iranian society said, no, we want freedom, we want democracy, and we're willing to pay the price for it. So, this, again, was the turning point where the MEK realized, and I want to say something else. The strategy to make or to bring about political change is never determined by those who want change. It is determined by the government in power. When the government in power allows you to go to the voting polls, that's how you change. When they don't, the only way possible is to fight. You have to be willing to fight the very forces, the IRGC, the Basij, and there's like 17, 18 different organizations, each controlling some aspect of life in Iran. You have to fight those. You have to defeat those. This is the only way you can bring about change. And that is, the Iranian people have shown in the last 47 years, they're willing to pay that price. They're willing to risk their lives. They're willing to be arrested, tortured, executed, their families tortured. 14-year-olds were arrested and executed for delivering pamphlets in the 1981 demonstrations. Fast forward, in 2017, 2019, 2022, the Iranian people rose over and over, this time much larger than before. It was nationwide, as the numbers were given, 131 cities in Iran, all the 31 provinces. Everywhere in Iran, people are fed up with the political system, with the educational system, with the economic system. So now I want to go back to the question again. How do you fight this regime? Massive nationwide uprisings by the people of Iran who are fed up with the current situation, but with the added ingredient now, as it was mentioned earlier, we have the resistance units. For over a decade now, these resistance units were created and trained by the MEK, the very force that the regime is so scared of. And over the past decade, they've grown in numbers, they've grown in sophistication of the activities that they do. It started by just perhaps writing a slogan on the wall. Now in broad daylight, they get on their motorcycles and their cars holding the leaders, pictures of the leaders, Masoud Rajavi and Maryam Rajavi, and driving in the streets of Iran. That is the confidence. You put these two together, this is how you bring this regime down. Willing to sacrifice, willing to pay the ultimate price for freedom and democracy.
Thank you, Behzad. Thank you, Behzad. And the next question goes to Dr. Firuz. Dr. Firuz, Behzad talked about and analyzed the most realistic path to bring an end to this regime. Now, many may question the ability and capability of the Iranian resistance inside Iran to play an instrumental role in bringing an end to this regime. How would you respond to that doubt, those who question the ability of the Iranian resistance?
By evidence, frankly. It's a good question for a person who's obsessed with data and evidence. And many panel members, which I want to again congratulate the previous panels, they were doing outstanding job. The first panel, the scholars, the women panel, the youth panel, and so forth. So some of the facts have been repeated, but probably for the sake of the younger generations in the audience, I would like to kind of answer your question in summarizing the elements rather than repeating all the elements. So this is a resistance that in 1979, after its founders were executed by the previous regime, the Shah's regime, they came out of the jail. They were less than 200 people. Less than 2 years, this resistance leadership mobilized over 500,000 demonstrations across Europe. And some of us are witnessing that. I'm an eyewitness of that. The same resistance published the most widely published newspaper in Iran, Underground, over 500,000 daily subscribers or readers of the papers. Imagine that in a city as big as Washington, as big as New York, you can run an underground operation to publish 500,000 printed paper today and distribute that through the secret channels. So that to me is the power of the social mobilization. The next one, after they were forced into exile, and they formed the National Liberation Army. You guys have seen the movies and so forth. Again, less than 2 years. The National Liberation Army was announced in June of 1987. By August of 1988, they imposed to Khomeini to accept the ceasefire in Iran-Iraq war. And he declared it as drinking the poison. According to the regime's agents themselves, it was the force of the NLA and the fear of NLA coming inside Iran that imposed drinking the poison to Khomeini. Then, in 2002, some of the members are here, the resistance revealed the most secret part of regime's agenda, enrichment of the uranium. And since then, they have revealed over 130 secret projects of this regime, leading to the recent military action. The most famous one, a lot of youth now know it, the Natanz and Fordo. They were the very first time revealed by this resistance. So that element shows the deep penetration, intelligence penetration of the resistance inside Iran. And its popular support, as you know, you cannot have that intelligence without a popular support inside Iran. The next, after Iraq war, the resistance changed the strategy and adapted itself to formation of the resistance units in Iran. And plenty have been said about the power of the resistance units, the impact on the youth, impact inside Iran. But on one element, again, as a biologist, as a scientist, I'll tell you, the regenerative power of the resistance units is unbelievable. Despite all the arrests, killing, tortures, and the fears, the resistance units are expanding exponentially. They're expanding in terms of their operation ability and in terms of their quality. A round of applause for resistance units. So in a summary, I have highlighted the elements of the capabilities for social movement, for military action, for intelligence, power, and penetration, and now the boots on the grounds to fire the firepower we need to bring this regime down. The evidence speaks for itself.
Thank you, Dr. Firuz. In the first round of questions, we focused on the issue related to regime change, including the actual task of toppling the regime. Now, in the next round of questions, we'll shift our attention to the transition period and the 6-month period after the fall of the regime. The first question goes to Farida. Farida, in your view, what evidence suggests that after the fall of the regime, Iran will not descend into a civil war or become a failed state?
Thank you for that question. I must start by saying that the regime itself is behind this claim that Iran will end up to a civil war if this regime falls. Also, the same exact claim was made by Shah during the previous regime, dictatorship regime, that if I go, Iran will fall apart. But this never happened, and it will never happen. Because Iran is a historic nation state with deep cultural and civilization identities. Iran has kept its identity for more than 4,000 years and has kept the sense of togetherness of the people during these 4,000 years. Different ethnic and religious groups have lived together peacefully for centuries. They have not only kept their identity, but they have considered themselves an integral part of the Iranian nation. the main source of instability is the regime itself. Since it came to power, it spread extremism, terrorism, sectarian conflicts, and it funded the proxy militias in the region. So, in fact, the most common factor today that unites the Iranian people together is the fall of this regime. And it's important to note that we have an organized resistance that has been there for more than 60 years, and it has roots throughout the whole Iran, and has a plan, has a vision, and has offered a platform that completely rejects this claim made by both dictatorships, the mullahs and the Shah. So at the end, I must say that the guarantors of a stable Iran after the fall of mullahs are the freedom-loving people of Iran and the NCRI as the organized and political alternative for the tomorrow of Iran.
Thank you, Farideh. And next question goes to Behzad. NCRI, according to its program, will form a transitional government for a period of 6 months after the fall of the regime. And then the power will be transferred to the elected representatives of the people. Now, the question is, what evidence suggests that NCRI is able to address, manage the complex issues of Iran after the fall of the mullahs, and what would be the features of this transitional period, which is governed by the government of NCRI?
I want to draw a parallel, a comparison with what I do in my profession. America is going back to the moon and ultimately to Mars in the next 10, 15 years. In order to achieve such a feat, you have to develop the most complex system of systems. And how do you prove that this system can do this? You do tests. We design and execute thousands of tests. My job, along with a number of other engineers and scientists, is to oversee these tests that are happening. And not only you do tests on pieces and components, but you also put the whole system together and then do, again, hundreds of rehearsals, of operational processes that have to take place in order for us to be able to do this. Now let's look at what's been going on in Iran. We've had a dictatorship for 47 years. The desire in the 1957 uprising against the overthrow of the Shah was to bring about a democratic government. That desire hasn't gone away. After that 1981 summer when the regime said, no freedom allowed, Mr. Masoud Rajavi, the leader of MEK, formed the National Council of Resistance in Tehran in 1981. In its 44-year history, it has proven not only it has withstood all the attacks by the regime and its proxies and its helpers, but it has expanded and it has now become a world-recognized, internationally recognized democratic alternative to the regime. Now let's break this apart and see how is it going to do that? NCRI is supposed to govern for 6 months to bring a new government. So as far as parts, I shortly mentioned the history. You look at who is NCRI. What is its organizational structure? How has it functioned in these 44 years? And what's the outcome? What has it achieved? You look at who it is. NCRI has more than 450 members. Members include individuals and organizations from all walks of life and it has a diverse membership of ethnic minorities, religious minorities, different political views. So it very well represents the entire society of Iran. Organizationally, and one thing I'd like to add is that 52% of NCRI are women. That is a strong indicator of gender equality and social justice for a free future Iran. Now let's look at how it's structured. NCRI elected a president for the transitional period, Mrs. Maryam Rajavi. NCRI has formed 25 different committees, each acting as a government ministry or a department in charge of some function. Examples of Ministry of Health, Ministry of the Environment, or the Economy. Running as a government, it's been doing that for 44 years.
Thank you, Behzad, for your response.
Thank you.
And Reza, very briefly, because we're short of time here, Reza, would you, I want to see what your thoughts on the great deal of excitement and hope which surrounds the 10-point plan of Maryam Rajavi. Could you tell us what you think about that?
Yes. Give me 1 second. Well, coming from an engineering background and a life that I had to rebuild piece by piece, I see every challenge as a system that can be redesigned logically and scientifically. Ms. Maryam's 10-point plan resonates with me because of my background. But there are 3 points that I really like to address, and I'll try to be as short as possible. Point number 4, religion, separation of religion and state. In engineering, when 2 systems overlap without clear boundaries, the results are instability and failure. That's exactly what's happened with the Iranian government. It is a corrupt mechanism. Point number 4, the separation of religion and states ensures stability and fairness. Faith is not personal, and governance is impartial. A secular republic ensures equal rights for every Iranian, whether Muslim, Christian, Jewish, and Baha'i. And point number 8, justice and equality. This point really reflects with me because at Caltech, whether you're a contributor as a student, mechanic, machinist, engineer, we all have the same opportunity and we get the same respect. Iran needs the same principle. For decades, the mullahs and the IRGC has suffocated opportunity. And point number 8, it envisions transparent merits based on economy, and restores dignity for workers, whether they're farmers, nurses, teachers, engineers, and retirees. When fairness replaces favoritism, creativity explodes, and Iran shifts from a restricted-based economy to an innovation-driven economy. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And next question is for Dr. Firuz. Dr. Firuz, 1979 revolution in Iran was fought with a promise, or what people wanted was freedom. But we know what happened, and their trust was betrayed. What would you say to the question that why people should trust this time around with the revolution, that their trust is not going to be betrayed again?
The answer needs more than 30 seconds, but I'll try to summarize. Really, the foundation of trust goes back to credibility. In any industry, finance industry, in my profession as a surgeon, you know, when a patient comes to me and says, why should I trust you? Why should I leave my life to you? How I know that you're going to do what you told me to do? How do I know that the promises you're telling me you're going to keep them? Right? Goes back to my past performance, goes back to my previous behavior toward the patients I've had, the word of mouth, and so forth. And I would claim, not only I would claim, I would present the data that has been presented by many panels in the past, that over the past 40 years, the NCRI has declared its position unequivocally, transparently, and committed and kept its promises to basically those elements. And the elements have been published. I think the reflection of that on the Mrs. Rajavi's 10-point plans, the freedom, separation of the church and the government, equal rights for women and men, and the rest of them that were demonstrated before. But to me, again, the concept of the promises made, promises kept is in the behavior of the NCRI, that despite enormous pressure over the past 4 decades, it has not compromised from its position to stand with those principles, has paid the price dearly, politically and otherwise, to keep its promises. The only thing I can compare here is to, I have a privilege coming into Washington to the city to participate and sometimes chair study the scientific sections of the National Institute of Health. The topic in hand is who is credible and what evidence that person or that group presents. We dissect those out and everyone's voice is heard, and at the end, the jury votes. The same concept goes with the NCRI sessions. I've had the privilege of being an observer, and some of the distinguished members of the NCRI are here. Truly, they dissect out everything like a scientific challenge in hand. And if you don't believe me, I would encourage especially the youth in the audience to go and read the annual report of the NCRI over the past 40 years and compare those with the outcomes, with the results that they predicted. The most recent one, the October 7th events, and go back and read the NCRI reports on that. The day after October 7th, Mr. Rajavi came out and said, the head of the snake is in Tehran. And it took 2 years. It took more than 2 years for the international community, including all the intelligence services, to realize the same thing. So for policymakers, the track record is the buildup of the credibility. For scientists, is the outcome. And I would propose the NCRI has done both, has presented the credibility in terms of the evidence, and has really delivered the outcomes that it has declared in its position. So the evidence is, again, to speak for itself.
Thank you, Dr. Cruz. We're now at the conclusion of our discussion. Our panel laid out a clear picture. The regime change is no longer a distant dream. It's in our reach, and the future is bright. Thank you all for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now break for lunch. Please enjoy the multimedia showcase and music interlude as we prepare for our next session. Please, we will reconvene here 2:15. We will continue with our keynote speaker, special dignitaries. You won't want to miss it. Come back.